All right, we're back for another podcast show with me and Dustin. And this is a question I brought because it's conversations I feel like I've consistently had over the years. And it's playing players that violate rules or standards or whatever you want to call it. So on one side, coaches are saying, hey, I've got to be consistent. I got to sit on some, never think about it. Others, they have it, say it's not a major violation of some rule. But they're like, if I don't let this kid participate, the whole team's punished. So I, as a coach, would always err on the side of no, the standards are the standards and go. But enough good coaches and smart people that I respect have argued the difference. I thought it'd be fun to discuss with you. So sacrificing standards on some level for winning because it's better for the whole group. What do you think?
Well, the short answer is like we're going to have our standards and stick to them until that standard's the third leading scorer in the country and never wins a line drill. And I would say this. When you ask that question, I think it makes me immediately think of what are the non-negotiables? What things am I willing to, die on what hill for? And then you talk sometimes about gray area and what does that look like? So for instance, I remember a player that I had that was the third leading scorer in the country and literally on a given night was good for 30 and 5. Moved pretty slow at practice sometimes. Didn't ever win a line drill. But he had the team as far as relationships. And so when we talk about sacrifice a win for standards, I think there's so much that goes into that. If we're talking about a lifestyle violation, I mean, the standard, I think, is the standard. But to your point, there were some times that I sat that kid and it was like my whole team was like, Coach, put him in. And so that's a tough one. I will tell you this story. My second year of coaching, we had some guys late for the bus one time and at Van. And I mean, I gave this big speech and you're 10 seconds late. We're leaving you. We're not going to tolerate that. And of course, some of the guys who were late they were not impact players, if I'm just being honest. Our next road game, I'm out in the van. There's about 3 minutes left and our best player is not in the van. And I looked at our assistant coach. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I go to the office and I'm texting our assistant coach like every 30 seconds. Hey, is he in the van yet? Hey, and turns out this player was 2 minutes late. And I got in the van and said, hey guys, I'm sorry. I forgot the whiteboard or whatever, because that guy, the point I was trying to make was not for that player. Now you can hear that and say, hey, you're soft or you're going to, I think the reality is time and place. That was the best decision. And so it goes back to, is fair mean being the same to every guy, every player? I don't think it does.
Yeah, that's one of the places my mind goes is if you put a rule up there, you better follow it.
And I think that might be the take home here.
And it'll sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. Bobby Knight had a rule of he didn't have a lot of rules. So he had the freedom to keep his best player and kick off his worst player. Because I think coaches pin themselves in the corner.
Yeah.
And it can get hard.
Yeah.
And that's one place for administrators on the call. I think the institution or organization can pick their standards and then make policies so there's no wiggle room on it.
Yeah.
And then give coaches freedom within that.
Yeah.
So we say this, and this, we're not going to tolerate. If you do it, you're going to, like we have something at Friends where if you don't do study hall hours 2 weeks in a row,
yep,
you're not going to participate.
Yep.
And that's our way of saying, hey, school matters to us. We want you to be a graduate.
Yeah.
Coaches left to their own devices, which we had before, had such a wide range of policies that I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I think there's that layer with it too.
I think we're talking nuance because I would say you could sacrifice a win based for standards to then go on and win a championship. And I would say as a young coach, I was guilty at times of bending for a win here or there when I think in some ways that could have lost you a season or could have lost when it mattered most. So I want listeners to know in a very real way, I think most of the time the standard wins out. I would just go back to what are those standards?
Yeah. And why do you have them? Are you trying to make yourself look good?
That's good.
Is there an educational piece to it, a character component? But I remember I made this up on the fly once. I was talking to our friend Kyle Howe in the press box at a baseball scrimmage once. And I do think there's a piece of you have arrived as a head coach in terms of feeling secure in the position where you can make that hard decision, knowing it may cost your team in the short term, and willing to take that heat, those questions that come with, because you just know it's for the best of the group and for the individual or both.
let's talk about what successful teams look like in standard, meaning had not perfect year, whatever it is now compared to year one. Now the conversation that I'm having with players are, guys, let's not let each other down. And instead of if this happens, I'm doing this, it is fellas, please don't put me in that spot.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to make those hard decisions. It's way easier if we're all in on this thing. And that's where it gets fun, right? Yeah. And by the way, I never thought of those words nor said those words about the first 4 years of coaching. What you said, there were all these, this is the standard, to just, I don't know, elevate myself, look cool, say we're hard. I don't know.
I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this even now, sometimes you put those rules or standards in place out of insecurity of something happened. I don't want it to happen again. I don't want to look bad, so I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I find I have to moderate myself. But I think we talk about all the gray area in this. At the end of the day, whatever we say are the non-negotiables are, you have to take a deep breath, be an adult, and do them.
So answer it before, like, to end it. Would you sacrifice a win for standards?
I'd sure like to think so. How about that?
That's a great Rob answer.
What about you?
I think now versus then, when the standards are right, that you absolutely sacrifice a win for the standards. I think you always do the right thing, though.
Yeah.
And sometimes the right thing, there is gray in it. And I wonder sometimes if when listeners hear you and I talk, that they ever think that these guys are soft on coaching or soft on approach. I would tell you that going through ICP, it's allowed me to do the opposite. I think I'm hold guys more accountable, more intense, get more output. The list goes on now than ever. And yet in conversation, it's not as we do this or we don't. Yeah. Agreed with that?
I'll agree with that. And I think the other thing I worry about when we do this is I don't know if our wins are any less messy than they were before. We just have a framework we work off of and want to share that. But even the last 2 weeks of when we're recording this, I've had to deal with some pretty crappy situations where I've had to take a deep breath, make decisions like this is going to suck. And half the group's probably going to disagree, but with the long term in mind, you just make that decision. So yeah, all this is well and good when you're sitting talking to each other. But I think all that to say, it's a value I think we bring is we're also living it day to day.
Yeah. I'll add this statement. I believe I would sacrifice a win for the standards. And oh, by the way, I think it's important for the coach to say to the player, this really hurts. This really sucks. This is really tough. This is where we're at. I'm going to, and I miss that part. It's like, well, that's the standard, is what it is. Instead of saying, hey, there's not a part of me that wants to do this, but you know, we said it. I don't, and just being honest about, I don't want to lose the group here. All right. Or the opposite way and saying, hey, I know this is where we're at. I feel like this is warranted a little different. I'm going to make this decision. I'm a big boy. Now's not the time and place. If you have questions, concern about that, hey, we've got an open door. Come get with me this week. Let's talk through it. That's a human thing.
And I think there's a layer for me, and I know for you, because we've talked about it, of part of my thought process now is how would I want somebody to treat my kid? If this was my kid in this situation or with this team, or even somebody on the team, but not the one violating the standard, how would I want that environment to be? And that can help guide some of my decision making too.
Yeah. Go to the care piece as we end. When you have a team, a group, organization that deeply cares for one another, or you've set up platforms to care for one another, when that does happen and there's a quote sacrifice of a player, the group feels that. And I think there's empathy for that person instead of yeah, you did it. I'm up. I think there's dude, we're with you. And that's different. There's community in that. That's, as you say, hard things, do hard things. Yep. The book, like sometimes the hard thing is that, and it's hard on everybody. But when the group responds that way, along with the coach and player, it matters. And so many layers to that when that decision is made.
Yeah. And I think what I'm going to say is the team saying, hey, dude, you screwed up, but you're still one of us. We're with you.
Well, that end quote.
End quote. And we'll leave it there. As always, please leave some comments, questions. If you're listening on Substack in the comments, or you can email either of us. Thanks for listening.